Hello, everybody. My name is Campbell Eubanks, and today I'm going to be talking to you about the understanding of metamorphic rocks. First, let's talk about what metamorphic rocks are and how they are formed. So, metamorphic rocks are formed from pre-existing rocks, such as igneous, sedimentary, and even other metamorphic rocks. They are created through a process called metamorphism. This means that the rocks will go through a change as a result of extreme heat, pressure, fluids, or a combination of those factors. These conditions are called agents of metamorphism. Another important thing to remember is that metamorphic processes take place over millions of years, so they do take a very long time. These long processes include recrystallization, phase change, neocrystallization, and plastic deformation. There are also different types of metamorphism as well. This can include contact metamorphism, which happens due to the proximity of a very hot igneous intrusion. There's also regional metamorphism, which affects a large area or a region, and dynamic metamorphism, which is caused due to stress along a fault line. Sedimentary and igneous rocks become metamorphic rocks through burials and agents of metamorphism that were previously mentioned. And here's just a graphic to show you the formation of all the rocks, including metamorphic rocks at the bottom here. It's a long process and it's just a continuous cycle. So now that we have a general understanding of the formation of metamorphic rocks, let's define the goal of my study. The ultimate goal is to test the general population's understanding of how metamorphic rocks are formed and to gain an understanding of how the public thinks about metamorphic rocks just in general. The question I'm ultimately asking to find this goal is, how do my peers think that metamorphic rocks are formed? For my method in this process, I held a study questionnaire. I gave people a piece of paper that said, write as many things you can think of describing how metamorphic rocks are formed. The reasoning behind choosing my study question is that it is an open-ended question. This allows the respondent to give as detailed or undetailed of an answer as they are capable of. I'm also not giving the respondents any hints or previous information that could change their answers in any way. Also, asking the respondents to write their question down gives them the time to process and come up with their answer on their own time. So for my study population, my respondents were in the age range of 20 to 73 years old. I had a total of 15 respondents. So 9 of those respondents were aged 20 to 22. 1 person was aged 25, and 3 people were aged 40 to 55. 40 to 55, and 2 people aged 70 to 75. So most of my respondents were in the 20 to 22 years old range. I also had a very pretty even split between the genders, and all of my respondents were either friends and family or my classmates / professors. So before we dive into the juicy results of this study, let's talk first about how I define the respondents' level of understanding. First, I cited that there were these key factors that would determine their understanding, which is change, heat, pressure, and or time, meaning that if they included any of these certain factors or didn't, then I could determine their level of understanding. So for level 1, that was really if they didn't give me really even an attempt to answer the question, or they left me with an I don't know response. Level 2 was they mentioned 1 factor, and level 3, the respondent mentioned 2 factors. And level 4, there was a more specific mentioning of metamorphosis and all of the factors above. Here is just a visual tabulating the results of my questionnaire with 4 respondents having a level 1 understanding, 7 had level 2, 3 had level 3, and 1 with level 4. Here is a pie chart showing the data that was collected. We can just see more clearly the divide of the levels of understanding, with the least number of participants having a level 4 understanding and most people having a level 2 knowledge of the formation of metamorphic rocks, which means they mentioned at least 2 factors of metamorphosis. Now, what do these results mean? Well, first of all, it shows that the most common level of knowledge is a level 2, where they mention at least 2 correct factors of metamorphism. The results also show that the general population does not have a high level of understanding of how metamorphic rocks, and it's a very complicated process that not a lot of people know about. The study, in my opinion, is important to gain an understanding of how the general public thinks of metamorphic rocks pertaining to geology. It is interesting to see how knowledgeable some respondents are versus others, especially because most of these people have probably learned about metamorphic rocks at some point in their educations, as these are all very educated people. If I were to do this study again, I would like to hold it with more participants, and that would just allow for a vary in age range as well as in their education / their background. It would be interesting to see how much respondents knew about other types of rocks over metamorphic rocks as well, because I did get a few results where people were describing like igneous rocks, but I couldn't give them a high level of understanding in metamorphic rocks because they knew nothing about it. In conclusion, most respondents had a level 2 knowledge of how metamorphic rocks are formed. And in response to answering my study question, how do my peers think metamorphic rocks are formed? I found that the most common responses suggest that metamorphic rocks, in my peers' understanding, are formed over long periods of time and through pressure. Many people mentioned the aspect of time, which would lead them to at least a level 1, and a lot of people said that they knew there was pressure involved. I do think that the study would be more successful with more participants if I were to do it again. And I also think it was very important to do this study, as it is important to understand how people are thinking of metamorphic rocks and how they're formed, just in order to understand better the planet that they reside in. And it's, a lot of complicated things, but we are living on this planet, and it would be important to understand how everything works. So here are my works cited for this study. Thank you so much for listening, and I hope you learned something from my presentation.